Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Now I want you to imagine trying to build a perfectly unified democracy across a nation that is, well, literally 99% water. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating, actionable blueprint designed to do exactly that for the Maldives. And listen, this isn't just some dry theoretical policy document. It is a meticulously structured plan to weave civic responsibility into the very fabric of everyday life. So whether you're a policy enthusiast, an educator, or honestly just someone who loves seeing complex systems beautifully mapped out, you're going to find this incredibly inspiring. Let's get right into it.
So here's the big question, right? How do you actually build a nation of active citizens across a highly dispersed island nation? We're not talking about one big landmass here. We're talking about communities scattered across hundreds of separate islands. Just think about the sheer logistics of that for a second. Delivering education, managing governance across vast stretches of ocean? Well, this blueprint takes that exact geographical nightmare head-on, proposing a way to turn a totally dispersed population into one unified, cohesive democracy.
To overcome that massive geographic hurdle, the framework demands a radical shift. It's built entirely on this one core idea: learn by doing, through real participation, not just memorization. You can't just read a textbook to become a good citizen. It doesn't work like that. You've got to get your hands dirty, right? Practice it in your actual community, through active, hands-on experience.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for exploring what they call the lifespan of a citizen. We'll look at the nation-shaping vision, the governance setup, civic education in schools, learning beyond the classroom, elections, and finally, the roadmap to reality.
Let's start with Section 1, a nation-shaping vision anchored in the Constitution.
The ultimate goal here is for every single person to deeply understand the Constitution and their specific role in society. And to pull that off, the blueprint establishes a few core pillars. First off, everything is rooted directly in the Maldivian Constitution. Second, and this is absolutely crucial, it is strictly nonpartisan. This is about systems and rights, never about picking a political side. Third, it's island reality-based. That means the curriculum actually reflects the everyday reality of living on an atoll. And finally, it's lifelong and practice-oriented. It's not just something you cram for a test and forget. It's a continual, lifelong process of engaging with your community.
Moving on to Section 2, governance setup, the institutional architecture.
Now, having a great vision is one thing, but how do you actually oversee it without the whole thing becoming disorganized or politically biased? It is absolutely fascinating to see who sits on the proposed National Civic Education Council. To manage a program of this massive scale, they literally bring everyone to the table. You've got the Ministry of Education leading the schools, the local government authority representing the islands, the Elections Commission, the judiciary, universities, and civil society. And importantly, it also includes religious scholars to ensure everything aligns perfectly with Islamic values and the constitutional framework. This kind of diverse makeup, it's a brilliant structural safeguard that guarantees absolute neutrality and accuracy across the board.
Which brings us to Section 3, Civic Education in Schools. The lifespan begins.
So where does the citizen's journey officially start? Right in primary school, and it totally evolves as they grow. Check this out. In grades 1 through 6, kids don't even touch complex politics. They focus entirely on basic community rules and fairness, mostly through role play. But then, by lower secondary, the students mature into learning about fundamental rights and the separation of powers. They use school-based student councils and basic mock elections. Finally, in upper secondary, the training wheels come completely off. The focus shifts to deep policy, public finance, and active citizenship. Students are engaging in actual mock parliament debates. They're mediating disputes, and they're even researching local issues like tourism and the environment to present to their actual local councils. How cool is that?
But here's the catch. How is this actually evaluated? Because let's be honest with ourselves, if it isn't graded, kids just aren't going to take it seriously. The blueprint dictates this absolutely must count towards promotions or national exams. But thankfully, they aren't just bubbling in multiple choice tests. Assessment is based on real debate rubrics and actively evaluating participation. On top of that, teachers receive specific targeted training on how to handle sensitive topics neutrally and safely. They essentially transition from being just lecturers to becoming facilitators of respectful, evidence-based arguments.
All right, Section 4, learning beyond the classroom, adult and public education.
Because a functioning democracy relies heavily on the people voting today, not just the kids who are going to vote tomorrow, this education absolutely does not stop at high school graduation. Unlike the formal schooling we just talked about, adult community learning is incredibly dynamic and woven directly into daily life. Adults learn through Atao Council's Civic Evenings, where local rights and services are mapped out. They learn through targeted TV dramas that illustrate everyday civic dilemmas, things like corruption or public property disputes. And notably, religious platforms are utilized too, with sermons linking civic duties directly back to constitutional responsibilities, justice, and honesty.
Next up, Section 5, Elections and Active Citizenship, Real-World Integration.
Okay, so all of this educational theory builds toward the single most critical real-world application: elections. And the blueprint outlines an incredibly refreshing way to look at the Elections Commission. They are framed literally as the recruiter of elected employees. Just think about that for a second. Framing elected officials as public employees and the commission as the official human resources recruiter, that radically changes how a citizen views their own power and leverage in the democratic process. It's brilliant.
To make this actually work, the civic learning is perfectly timed with actual election cycles. Before a vote, the state runs coordinated, nonpartisan campaigns that are strictly focused on explaining how to evaluate candidates and how the institutions actually function. Meanwhile, schools run parallel mock elections, so students mirror what the adults are doing. And after the election, well, the learning just keeps going. They hold mandatory public report back sessions from councils and MPs, which ensures constant, ongoing accountability.
Finally, Section 6, the roadmap to reality, building the blueprint.
So what is the actual timeline to make this massive, ambitious blueprint a reality? Well, it builds progressively. Phase 1 takes about 1 to 2 years to design the standards and pilot the program across a really diverse set of islands, from the busy capital right down to the small remote atolls. Then, Phase 2 is the big nationwide scale-up. And finally, Phase 3 is all about consolidation, where the system is permanently institutionalized and regularly evaluated to make sure it's actually working. Let's zero in on that middle phase, 3 to 5 years. That is the dedicated time frame for Phase 2's nationwide scale-up. During this critical window, the curriculum rolls out grade by grade, it gets fully integrated into teacher training colleges and national media, and regular impact evaluations kick in. They start measuring its true success by looking really closely at metrics like youth engagement and actual voter turnout. Which leaves us with this final thought. If a highly dispersed island nation, facing immense geographical and logistical challenges, can design a blueprint to build a cohesive, lifelong system of active citizens, well, what could other nations learn from this? This blueprint from the Maldives proves that with structured, nonpartisan education that spans all the way from the primary classroom to the adult workplace, a truly informed democracy is entirely possible. Really makes you wonder how a model like this could reshape and strengthen your own society, doesn't it? Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.